Welcome to Crafts and Minis. Today I want to share with you some of the tools of the hobby. Now these are my tools of the hobby, not necessarily what everybody uses, but I think that's what's so cool about our hobby of miniature painting and crafting terrain. When you start to dig in and get plugged into this community, whatever social media you're on, or especially here on YouTube, you see all sorts of different ideas, different tools that are used in our craft. And these are what I use. This is on my table right now. I actually pulled all this stuff off of there. This isn't for show. I actually have used all of this very recently, within the last couple days. And I think it's so cool to learn from one another and see our experience. So I want to show you just a few things that have been really good for me in the hobby lately. First of all, when you're getting your miniatures together and you're going to have to glue, I really recommend trying E6000 on more stuff. I know a lot of people use this for their crafting when it comes to gluing metals and plastics and wood and all sorts of different things that you might need a little stronger bond than just hot glue. And it of course works great for that, but I use this especially to glue miniatures to bases, whether they're plastic or resin or metal or whatever material the miniature is. I love using E6000 to glue to bases, but especially this clear kind. You'll notice that when you go to the store, you can get it in white or black, I believe, but get the clear kind. I've used the white kind. It does not have the same bond as clear, and so I don't recommend the white for that purpose. I also like this clear kind because when you're getting some miniatures that are now using that transparent material, the bones or like plastic that's transparent actually in the miniature, and you're supposed to keep it transparent like a gelatinous cube from Reaper or something like that. This clear E6000 is great to put that together because you can just leave it, it dries clear. It's really good. So I use this for a lot of projects, E6000. Once you put your miniature together and it's time to do some basing, I love to use this product from Vallejo. Now I've used this product for years, but it got recently a new label, and there's this whole line now of earth textures from Vallejo. I like specifically the black lava or asphalt texture. Now, the reason I like it is not because it's black, although, you know, I usually start with a black base for my miniatures. It's because of the consistency that actually is different from some of their other products. I've used their gray pumice and their like red earthy color and their brown earthy colors, and they don't have the same texture as this. Now, someone from Vallejo might tell me different, I don't know, but when I've been using this, this is thicker when it's applied. And it comes out with just a different texture, a different feel than the other products that I've used for basing. Now, a lot of people just use glue and sand on their bases, and I've used that too. It works great. For some things, this is super quick. And this works amazing. And I don't have to worry about it coming off the base. I've never had that happen, but I have had that happen when I've used PVA glue and sand before, that it peels up off the base after a while. This stuff is great. It also can be great on crafting terrain. So if you're going to craft a piece of terrain and use like pink foam to do it, and you know you've done all the other texturing with your rock and your aluminum foil rubbed against it, and you've broken out chunks and all that, add in a few spots this type of thing, and it really takes it to a whole nother level before you paint it. So that's great stuff. Black lava or asphalt earth texture from Vallejo. Now once you have your mini based, you need to prime it, and I love my Sandable Black Auto Primer. This stuff can come from a lot of different brands. This is Rust-Oleum. I've been using this lately. It works great on all sorts of different materials, even materials that maybe can be a little difficult to prime. Now, honestly, I want to set up my airbrush and start priming with my airbrush more, and then I'll move more away from the Automotive Black Auto Primer because I'm so dependent on the weather of where I'm at for it to be conducive to priming. And when you read reviews about primers out there or see people talk about primers, just know a lot depends on the user and especially what the weather's like and the climate that they're in. Humidity, temperature, cold, heat can all affect the primer. How this is stored and how often it's used, how old it is, all that can affect how a primer is applied and how it sticks to the miniature and how good it is for a base coat. But for me, the Sandable Black Auto Primer has been just awesome. I think I saw Mike McVeigh recommend this years ago, but I could be wrong on that, but I don't think I am. That this has been a staple in the community for a while. And remember, when I prime, I do a black coat all the way around, and then I do a white spray just from the top to get this two-tone priming job. And what's so nice about that is then you have the shadows and the highlights already built in. Now, a lot of people use this. It's zenithal highlighting, right? The light source on top, or two-tone highlighting, or underpainting is the concept. And I just want to encourage it. But what I also see is people using like really opaque paints on this. Like you just take your hobby paint, like your Citadel paints or your Army Painter paints or Vallejo, and just paint right on top of this. And that to me ruins this prime job. What I use directly on top of a primer like this are Acrylic Artist Inks. And I wanted to show you my selection of those. So one Acrylic Artist Ink line that I've been really pleased by is this Daler-Rowney Acrylic Artist Ink, and especially this color Antelope Brown. This is such just a unique color brown. It's got a little green in it, I think, and it has just been amazing. Now, this isn't shook up as much as it should be right now, but these Acrylic Artist Inks are great. They're, of course, ink, so they're a super dense pigment, and they're, you know, a thinner substance to work with, right? And you can water them down, and they work great, and I just love them. They allow that two-tone prime job to still have its full effectiveness, and these Acrylic Artist Inks are great to add to your paint lines that you regularly use. I also get this Liquitex Acrylic Artist Ink from Michaels, which is a big box hobby shop here in the United States. Now, if you don't have Michaels, I'm sure you can get this type of thing somewhere, if not online for sure. But this transparent burnt umber, I've really enjoyed it. It's a little too orange there in the shot. But this is a great brown. And the pack this comes in, you also get like a raw sienna, and you get like a reddish color, and a reddish brown and a yellowish brown basically in that pack. And they are so nice to work with. What I do is when my base of my miniature is ready to be painted, I paint it with a craft paint. This is just an earth brown, but you can use any type of craft paints. And then I dry brush with a vanilla or cream colored craft paint. And then I lay down this transparent burnt umber ink. And I really like how it comes out on my basing. Here, I'll show you what that looks like. That's all this base was that brown craft paint, dry brush vanilla paint, and then this Acrylic Artist Ink on the base. And you see how it came out. And then I just paint the rim like a black or a dark gray. And I'm going to add tufts of grass to all these, but I'd like to just keep it simple. And what's cool, really cool for me is I have now consistency over my collection. I know some people throw out miniatures that have all sorts of different basing, and that's what they got to work with, and they're not, you know, worked up about that, and that's awesome. I just love painted miniatures, so whatever basing you want to do, great. I've just been really trying to have consistent basing in my collection, and it's going to make a huge difference in the long run, I think, which is really cool. Some other things I wanted to show you. This stuff is my liquid gold right now. It's really sad that it's getting low. This is from Vallejo as well. It's this wash. They call it Transparent Acrylic Wash. It's the sepia shade. And I know they sell little bottles, and I have the 18 milliliter bottles too of this type of thing. But this, when it comes in this big jar, is amazing. This is 200 milliliters, and there's a different consistency, I think, when it comes in the jar, because it actually can settle more, and you have to shake it up and all that to use. But what's amazing is this leaves a dirty, gritty finish when you do a wash on your miniature with this, and I have been using the heck out of this. You'd notice that when you watch my #HobbyStreak videos, that a lot of them have kind of that sepia feel to them, and in the shadows you see that dark color. That's from this wash, and it has been amazing. I really like it. That's like, it came out when the whole dip method was popular years ago. And yes, some of the miniatures I do put the wash on most of the miniature, but not all the time. And even when I put a wash on, I still paint over it. You know, I'm going to paint some highlights over it, pick out some details, get some edges. But that's a really good wash to try. They also have a black and I believe a gray. And I own the gray. I haven't used it yet though, so we'll see. We'll see if that's a future video of a recommendation. Some other things that I wanted to point to were simply the Citadel Handle. Now, you've seen this used by other people. It comes in actually two sizes. This is the smaller size for like your medium size creatures for D&D. It's like a 25 millimeter base or a 32 millimeter base can fit into there pretty easily, maybe a 40 millimeter on top. There's also the size that I thought looked really funny of the bigger ones that can accommodate, like I've put a 75 millimeter base into it, and it's worked out great. And I just wanted to say, use a handle of some type. It doesn't have to be this one, although I do use these. I enjoy them. They work out well. They do have a tendency, though, to get tipped over, though, so you got to watch that. I've seen some people glue a 40 millimeter base on the bottom of these, which I might do for mine as well, just to make sure they're a little more stable. But I just want to encourage you to use something, right? Even if you have like an old bottle of something, use blue tack on top, but watch what type of blue tack you use or poster tack, because I've used the cheap stuff from the dollar store before and it does not hold. Always, when you're putting your miniature on something like that, I shouldn't have to tell you, and I know I don't have to tell you, but just make sure it's a secure bond. These have worked out really great, and I've enjoyed those. I also, of course, have my blister pack plastic. This came from a Reaper model, and I use these all the time when I'm mixing up a little wash, when I'm mixing up some ink and water, when I'm mixing some paints together, not using a wet palette. These are great. When you get enough miniatures, you have whole stacks of these. It's great to reuse these. You can use them just for your bits too, to store in on a project, and I use these all the time, and you don't have to throw them out without using them first. So reduce, reuse, recycle, right? Awesome. That dates me a little bit. Two other products of color that I want you to take a look at are these Tamiya clear colors. So clear red here on the right-hand side. They also have like a blue and an orange and a yellow and a green, I believe. They might even have a purple. I'm not positive about that. Can't remember. But these are amazing. This red I use on eyes of monsters all the time. And if you mix it with this color, this smoke color, it can be amazing. Any of the colors actually are amazing mixed with this smoke I've found to darken them up just a little bit. But this smoke is stellar. Mike McVeigh, the great artist who was on the heavy metal team back in the day, and I know was like one of the influential forces behind War Machine when it was getting started for its art direction, recommended smoke for the Warjacks models that had like steam stacks engines on the back of the model. And when you put this over like a silver metallic color, it just plays different than any other wash, right? It's thicker. It's a little stickier, if that makes sense. When you use it, you'll know what I'm talking about. And these are amazing. So try some different colors out there. Go to not only your local game store, which I hope you're supporting, go to artist stores. You get these artist inks, which are amazing. And go to model hobbies, model like railroad or model car shops, because they are great hobbyists too, and they can give you so many tips. And that's where you'll definitely find a line like Tamiya. Finally, the tool of our trade, par excellence, are our brushes. And these are my workhorses, and they're in horrible shape. Now, the middle brush here is a Citadel large brush, and I love it. I've been using it a ton. Don't take care of it enough. I need to put it through some of the brush soap to use, which I've got, but I haven't used on these, so I need to do that. But this is what's replaced it, this red one. Now, this red one isn't from a big game company. This was simply at one of the big box hobby shops, and I love it. You'll notice how much bigger the bristles are on this one. And it actually comes to a pretty good point that you got to remember why you need more bristles, right? And why so many people who do this hobby a long time, or are like even professionals, talk about having a larger head to your brush, is because you can, when you're watering down your paints, which everybody says, right? You can have more of the color soaked up into the bristles, which you want. And then you can still get a good tip on it, and paint is still as small as you would with like a size 0 brush or something, almost, right? But if it has a good tip, you really can. But you just have so much more color to work with before you have to go back into the palette and get some more. Especially if your paints are watered down a little bit. Now, people talk about the consistency of milk, or you need to be able to put the paint over like a piece of paper that has typing on it and still be able to read the words beneath it. I know as like a tip I just saw on Reaper being said, and I agree, right? I fought that for a while. I still once in a while, and a lot actually, sometimes use paint straight from the pot on certain things when I'm getting lazy. But honestly, if you take the time to do multiple layers with thinner paint, it's golden, right? You're going to see a big, vast improvement in your painting. And that's the key. People talk about water down your paint, water down your paint. The reason you do that is because you have to do multiple layers. And even with the same color, you can decide on certain parts, I'm going to do a few layers, and then I'm just going to put a couple more layers just on this one little part, not everything I just painted with the same color. And you'll get different effects. So that's the thing. You just got to try stuff out. Now this brush is nothing special. It's old. It's beat up. It can be used a little bit for dry brushing. I use it on some basing stuff, right, for that cream color dry brush. But here's why I use it. I need it close by when I'm painting, because when I make a mistake and paint outside the lines, and really one of the skills you got to keep working on is just painting within the lines. A clean paint job as your base before you start doing other stuff is huge. And when we get outside the lines, one of the things you got to do is take a different brush than the one you're painting with immediately, like as quick as you can. So you even want to be holding this, or like I put it in my mouth. And when you're painting and you get outside the lines, grab this one, get a little water, or I lick it, and then wipe off the spot really quick. You don't have to repaint everything when you make a mistake. If you get to it quick enough, washes, inks even, and paints can all be wiped away if they're acrylic pretty consistently. Not always, but a lot of the times if you get to it right away. The other thing that I do sometimes with this, but not really, is as a second brush for two-brush blending. If you look at some of the videos out there on two-brush blending from like Privateer Press back in the day, did a lot of that. You put your color on with one brush, and then you go with a slightly damp brush, right, and pull the color along and blend it into the layer before. And with that second brush, since it doesn't have the majority of the color on it, right, and theoretically it's just a little wettened, you're taking that color and pulling it, so it's getting weaker as you pull it, kind of. Although when you stop, you want to always kind of pull in the direction where the paint's going to pool if you start watching a lot of good videos on all this stuff. But the whole point is you could use it for two-brush blending as well. Looking over all this stuff, it's kind of cool to see what stuff I'm using lately, because, you know, if you would have asked me this question this summer, there'd been other things here. And so maybe I'll update this video someday to show you what I'm using at the time, or if I find anything cool or a new product I see and use to tell you, I will. But all this stuff I use, all this stuff I would endorse because I've gotten good results from it. But always check it out yourself. See what other people are doing. This community is amazing when it comes to support. And I just want to thank everybody, of course, for the likes, the discussions, the subscriptions. I'm having a blast on all the social media too. And I just love this hobby. So get your tools ready and go get after your hobby.